We will now see what is the need of doing a demand forecasting for any organization or for any business. The first one is about producing the desired result. The second one would be to access the probable demand, and the third one probably could be forecasting the sales figure. Also, to have a better control, we can do a demand forecasting for controlling inventory, for assessing manpower requirement and ensuring stability. For all these things, we do require a good demand forecasting. So let's discuss one by one in details about them. Producing the desired output. Demand forecasting enables the organization to produce the predetermined output. It also helps the organization to arrange for the various factors of production, that is land, labor, capital and enterprise, beforehand, so that the desired quantity can be produced without any hindrances. Hence, it is very important for any activity to carry on, we have to think of the desired output. And once we have planned how to achieve these desired output with the various factors of production, we can achieve it without any hindrances. The second one is assessing the probable demand. Demand forecasting enables the organization to access the probable demand or possible demand for its product and services in the given time period and plan their production accordingly. By doing so, the demand forecasting avoids dependence on merely making assumptions for the demand. The next one is forecasting sales figure. How do you think a sales figure can be forecasted by these techniques? Well, a sales forecasting refers to estimates of sales figure in any organization for the given time period. Demand forecasting basically helps in predicting the sales figure by considering historical sales data and current trend in the market. The next one is better control. In order to have a better control in the business activities, it is important to have a better understanding about various activities that are being carried in any organization, consisting of your cost budget, profit analysis, in which it is achieved through demand forecasting. When we are talking about controlling inventory, we all know that inventory plays a very important role in any business. If you are keeping too much of inventory or a lesser inventory, or if you have a shortages in inventory level, the things may go haphazard for any organization. Hence, it is very important to maintain a good inventory level so that the hindrances are not faced by any organization. Demand forecasting typically helps in estimating the future demand for an organization's product or services. This in turn helps the organization to accurately access the requirement of various products that are required for production process. Let's say raw material, semi-finished goods, spare parts, etc. Now these inventories has to be taken care well so that it can be met whenever it is required. The next one is assessing manpower requirements. Now we know human resources are the backbone of any organization, and it becomes very important for them to have a good estimation as to how many people are required for any organization, whether a process is being underdriven or overdriven by their employees. Hence, demand forecasting helps in accurate estimation of manpower required to produce the desired output, thereby avoiding the situation of underemployment or overemployment. The next one is ensuring stability. Demand forecasting helps an organization to establish their operations by initiating the development of suitable business policy in order to meet cyclical and seasonal fluctuations in an economy. And hence, by ensuring the stability in a better way, the organization would definitely flourish. And in this competitive era, when so many competitions are there, in that way they will ensure stability in their industry also, wherever it is being prevalent. The next one is planning import and export policy. At the macro level, demand forecasting serves as an efficient tool for the government in determining the import-export policy for the nation. It helps in assessing whether import is required to meet the possible deficit in domestic supply. Not only this, it also helps in developing effective export promotion policy in the case of surplus of domestic supply. Those are the needs which we have seen just now, why we need a demand forecasting. Let's discuss the steps of demand forecasting. There are various steps to demand forecasting, and the steps should be followed in a chronological order so that the things goes without any haywire. Now the first one is specifying the objective. Now we all know whenever we do any project or any other activities, objective plays a very important role. It is very important for all of us to understand in general what exactly we want to achieve. Hence, the first step, the first purpose is to know what is your objective and why you are carrying out this demand forecasting for any purpose. Hence, in the first step, the purpose or the objective for which the demand forecasting is carried should be clearly mentioned or clearly specified. The objective need to be well defined in terms of whether we are going to conduct it for a short run, long run, or any kind of tenure has to be maintained. Whether the objective would also see if the forecasting is done for a specific firm or for the whole market. So, in these cases which we have taken just now as an example, it is very evident that the clarity should be maintained. Proper specification of objective would provide a right direction to a whole research. The purpose of demand forecasting hence needs to be specified before starting a process. The objective can be very specific, as already stated, that whether it should be a short term, long term, industry specific, economy specific as a whole, or a whole market demand would be taken into consideration. The next one is determining the time period. The demand may be forecasted either for a short period or for a long period depending on the objective of a firm. In case of short-term demand forecasting, there is, let's say, 2 years, 3 years can be the tenure. These many determinants of demand do not change significantly within this time period, whereas the demand determinants change significantly if we are talking about a long-run demand forecasting. It is required to clearly specify the time perspective of forecasting which is to be carried around. Next one or the next step is choosing the forecasting method. If you remember in the caselet that we just now discussed, we saw that due to the inappropriate technique of forecasting, the entire test went wrong. Now, by the time you would know that how important is it to choose a definite method for demand forecasting. Now a forecasting method is chosen once the objective and the time specified is specified. There are different methods of demand forecasting which are categorized into two types. It could be a qualitative method or it could be a quantitative method, or any of other statistical or quantitative method which can be preferred depending on industry and the needs and the requirement of the industry. All the different kinds of methods would follow under these two broader categories. That is, either they would fall under qualitative or quantitative methods. Few of the methods would consist of, let's say, an opinion poll method, a survey method, trend projection method, barometric method, and so on. All these methods would differ from one another depending on how it is to be availed. Hence, the selection of demand forecasting method also depends on the experience and expertise of the demand forecaster. And hence, only that method should be chosen the best which could best be suited for your requirement and for your industry. The next step is about collecting and analyzing data. After selection or selecting the demand forecasting method, the next very important step is to collect the data. Now, we all have already studied in the past as well in research methodology that there are various forms of collecting data, or there are various methods of collecting data. Data could be collected from a primary source or from a secondary source. What do you mean by primary source? Primary source are those sources which are taken directly from the consumer as a data collection method. Let's say a telephonic interview or filling up of questionnaire. These are a part of a primary data. These are also referred as first-hand data, which is not collected before in termed as a primary data. Whereas the data already collected in the past by someone and we are using that data again for our analysis, that can be referred to as a secondary data. For example, if I am taking some data from the journal which is already existing, or with some research papers that are there, books, magazines, or any other sources, those would be referred to as a secondary data. That means these data have already existed in the past and someone might have used it in their research as well. Sometimes the data is even adjusted or manipulated when the required set of data is not available. And this is done in order to build a consistency of data with the data required. The next and the final step is about interpreting the outcome. It is very important step because whatever you did in these steps, if you have not followed it well, the interpretation would not be done properly and hence the outcome would be lacking many other aspects. So after the data is analyzed, it is used to estimate demand for the predetermined years. Generally, the result obtained are in the form of equations which needs to be presented in a comprehensive format. It is done at the last stage once the forecasting method is finalized and the required set of data is collected. Usually, the equations are used by or is showing the estimate while the results are interpreted in an easy and usable way. Why do you think it is interpreted in easy and usable way? So that these things can be flown well in the hierarchy and hence it could be implemented well when taking in use. So these are the important steps that we have discussed in carrying out demand forecasting. Thank you.